Oscar-winning actress Hilary Swank is going to be a mom for the first time, and she's having twins. The 48-year-old made her big announcement Wednesday on Good Morning America. Swank said being a mother is something she's been waiting for a long time. She tied the knot with her entrepreneur husband, Philip Schneider, in 2018. Swank has not said whether she used in vitro fertilization or not to get pregnant. So we're going to bring in Dr. Payal Kohli here to talk about this, because it feels like women are just having babies later in life. So talking about Hilary Swank, what are the chances you think she did use IVF?
So, at 48, Alex, the chances of getting pregnant naturally are very low. They're about 2 to 3%. And the chances of having a healthy pregnancy, yes, are even lower. So 1 in 3 women over the age of 40 will end up having a child with Down syndrome. So the likelihood of natural conception here is probably extremely low. Our highest fertility is really in our teens, our 20s, and it starts to decline even in our early 30s, in fact.
Well, I had my daughter at 35, and the first thing the OBGYN said, "You're a geriatric pregnancy." And I was like, okay, calm down, sir. Like, that's a bit abrupt, right? But he was like, no, women are having babies later in life, but there's so many more testing that you have to go through.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a whole process.
And as soon as you hit that 35, we call it advanced maternal age now, no longer geriatric.
Thank you. That's much nicer.
But the idea there is mom's body is not designed to carry a pregnancy so late. So the risks go up. The blood vessel risks, the risks to the baby too, in fact, go up. Preterm labor, learning disabilities and such. And then as your eggs get older, of course, the risks of having babies with chromosomal abnormalities or miscarriages can go up as well.
So is IVF the safer option then if you're trying to get pregnant?
For baby, absolutely.
Really?
So yes, and that's the reason is as you get older, your eggs kind of get a little bit older. So if you do IVF, you actually can check the genetics of the eggs, check for chromosomal abnormalities. Now there's a slightly higher risk of prematurity with IVF. So babies conceived with IVF are slightly more likely to be born premature. But overall, the risk is probably better for baby. But for mom, she still has to carry that pregnancy.
Yeah, when you talk about the type of embryo, whether it's transferred, fresh, frozen, I know that's a conversation. Does that play into this as well?
It does, and this is some new data that just actually came out published in Hypertension. So it turns out that if you conceive naturally or you have a fresh embryo transfer, that is the lowest risk. That's kind of your baseline risk. But if you have a frozen embryo transfer, which has become kind of the standard now, because women are freezing their eggs, and a lot of women will have their first baby and then go on to have their second baby, and that's how they did the study. Actually, they used the same parents, one that basically had a fresh embryo and then a few years later had a frozen embryo, and your risk of developing high blood pressure during pregnancy is actually substantially higher, 27% higher.
Wow. So we need your advice. Talk to us older moms, if you will, upper 30s, lower 40s, mid 40s that are still wanting to start a family or maybe have more kids. What is your advice?
I think you can do it, and I think you can do it safely, but I think it's really important to recognize that there's risks, getting pregnant, and there's risks during the pregnancy, and then there could even be risks after the pregnancy. So all of that hormones that they give you to stimulate the ovaries, they can actually, result in blood clots and such. They can result in high blood pressure. We're now having some emerging data that women who used IVF actually had a higher risk of hypertension or high blood pressure 1 to 5 years after their pregnancy. Now, we don't know, is this because of the IVF, or is this because of something else with those women that were older, there was something else that kind of, affected their blood vessels. But it's concerning enough that I think we need to gather more information. But for moms out there who want to start a family, I encourage them to do so. I just think it's a really good idea to talk to your doctor, go through all the options, and make sure that you're pursuing the right one, not just getting caught up in this IVF culture that we have, so to speak.
Right, planning in the right way, because just last week we were talking about the new data that came out of women having heart issues after pregnancy and, the whole nine. So it's just such an important conversation. Exactly. We're glad you're here. It's not too late for us older moms. Thank you, Dr. Kohli.